We saw this insert a while ago, and we added some more fields and documents to it. We have the inserts of 3 objects available at the moment. Let's try to run it. And if we refresh now, we will see that the insert happened within the test database since we were there at that moment and it contained the LIDAR collection. Here, we can switch the display options back to the JSON format so that it becomes more intelligible again. We want to do so because the table formats do not display the inserted documents and the only thing we didn't nest was the name. If we click the LIDAR collection, another window will pop up. The find command will be automatically created and it will display all of our data. We can do so by the get collections function as well, since the command behaves the same as when I execute it directly. The function is useful for a situation where I'm working from inside the application. In such cases, I can edit the collections dynamically through the use of some variable. Here, the connection is already given by the API call. We will now check what such a command looks like when executed in the command line. I will have to switch to the correct database. And now I'm able to see the results. For such cases, there is also the pretty function. It lists the same information in the JSON format. This way, the information becomes slightly easier to read than when the attributes get listed mechanically after one another. It is very rare, however, for all attributes to be needed at the same time for a search within the database. We either need to look up individual documents, or we need to find particular fields within them. The find command has 2 basic options. The first one, selection, tells us which document attributes we need. The other one, projection, tells us which attributes will be displayed. We will want the attributes meno and wiek to be displayed. Wiek comes from the nested UDAE document. Then there is one more point of interest, which is ID:0, where the 0 has the same meaning as false. This makes sure that the mentioned data won't be displayed. If this part is missing, the ID will always display. In this case, we are getting the names of the people included in the collection, as well as their ages. If I run it without the ID suppression, I will also get the ID. So this was an example of a situation where only selected attributes are displayed. This is called projection. Now we will need something to help us choose the attributes. We can choose the attributes based on, for example, the parameter wiek. We will need to find the part where the selection conditions are written. When we enter that we would like to search for all people aged 30, we should be able to find only Tomáš. All seems good. Well, now let's add also the ID suppressing parameter. We have just seen the 2 basic parameters of the find command. The first information in the compound brackets defines a search criteria, a so-called selection. Then, divided by a comma, there is another set of commands listing the attributes that should be displayed. Another option is to order the information. When we take a look at what information we have in the database without any condition, we can see that there is one person who is 30, second who is 25, and one who is 35 years old. If we also add the sorting condition sort and an attribute by which the information should be sorted, we will get the standard sorting from the lowest to the highest, if the value equals 1. Should we want to reverse the sorting, the parameter value should equal -1. The same can be done in Robo3T. Once we search the same way as we did in the console, we will get the same data in the same order. Should we want to search by other criteria, for example, all people whose names start with the letter A, we will be using regular expressions. The regular expressions function is quite widespread for these kinds of databases. It is the only way for working directly with text strings. It is very useful to adopt these skills, as this is the only way of adjusting the search options. If I want to search for all people whose names start with A, this is the way to go. We can also try searching for people based on their age. If we use this command where we add the information that we are looking for people whose age is higher than 29 into the find condition, we will get both corresponding entries. We have also added the attribute velikost. As we can see, Tomáš doesn't have this attribute. That is why we didn't get this information. Alenka has the size of M. All of these attributes need to be enveloped in quotation marks or apostrophes. If we add this attribute as a compound, meaning that I'm searching for some attributes within a nested document, I will use a so-called dot notation in the form of nested document dot its attribute. Should I have more nested documents, I would just continue with the dot notation further. The entire notation needs to be enveloped in quotation marks. The same quotation style needs to be used both at the beginning and at the end. In a case I need to search for quotation marks, I need to use some substitute characters or apostrophes for enveloping the structure, and vice versa. I cannot search for quotation marks enveloped in quotation marks. The part of searching where we add some criteria into the find command might become useful for other commands as well. Apart from insert, the criteria containing selection, which displays the corresponding documents, works also for the update and remove commands. We already know how to insert data into database collections, as well as how to remove them again. Now we are going to follow with how we can change data in a collection. First, I went for a collection of all entries in order to see the age of all registered people. Now, I'm going to show you how their age can be changed. The syntax is still very similar. We start with a collection, then follow up with an update requirement. If the selection brackets are kept empty, it means that all of the collection entries will be updated. Then follows a command for incrementation. That means increasing the údaje.věk by 1. The end is occupied by an optional entry determining that we would like to update all entries. By this, we have updated all entries. We can see that all of our entries have actually been increased by 1. Should we want to revert this action, it would be quite easy. We would just change the increase from 1 to -1. And the data is back where it was. If multi-colon true was not used, it would mean that only one entry would be updated. Here we have reduced only the age of Tomáš. We can now reverse that the same way as before. When we work with these commands, we always use exactly one entry. The reason is that the find command by itself always returns a cursor. We should be closing the cursors afterwards. Usually, that is done by the application, not by the developer. So the cursors are closed by the application, but if we fail to manage them properly, it might happen that we run out of them. If that happens, we won't be able to get more data. Commands work in a single line mode, and find works in the same way. If we are using cursors, however, we need to pay attention and make sure that they are being closed properly. The command update many works just like multi-colon true. The difference is that the update many function is optimized better, and therefore it should be used straight away. There's the only difference. Backward compatibility is ensured. By update many, we are explicitly stating that we want to update more than one line. Again, we will reverse the VEC attribute. The last example of CRUD operations that we are going to talk about is the remove command. First, let's determine, for example, how many men we have in the database. There are two, Martin and Tomasz. And if we use the remove command and leave the same condition, only Alenka, who is a woman, will remain in the database. By doing this, we have erased all men from the database. The commands find, update and remove can be used in plenty of ways. We have tried only the most basic ones. For more sophisticated searching, however, documentation must be used. In there, you should be able to find more options of using these commands.